Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly as he drove through the busy streets of Lagos. His mind was far away from the road, lost in the whirlwind of emotions that had consumed him for weeks. The pain of losing Dora, the woman he once thought he would spend forever with, sat heavily on his chest. He could still hear her voice when she told him it was over. The words had sliced through him like a sharp knife, and the pain refused to heal. Dora had moved on quickly, too quickly, and she wasn't just dating someone new, she was getting married. To Josh, a man wealthier, more influential, and apparently more worthy of her love. Daniel scoffed at the thought. He had always known Dora loved money, but he had convinced himself that she loved him too. How foolish he had been. The blaring horns of a Danfo bus yanked him out of his thoughts. He blinked and realized he was speeding. He quickly hit the brakes, but just as he did, a figure darted onto the road right in front of his car. A sickening thud filled the air. Gasps and shouts erupted from onlookers as Daniel's car screeched to a stop. His breath hitched. His hands trembled on the wheel. He had hit someone. Without thinking, he flung the car door open and ran toward the body sprawled on the ground. It was a woman, thin, covered in dirt, and dressed in ragged clothes. Blood trickled from a small wound on her forehead, mixing with the dust on her dark skin. Her eyes fluttered weakly. Daniel's heartbeat increased rapidly. Oh God, what have I done? A small crowd had gathered around them now. Some people murmured, while others pointed at Daniel accusingly. You reckless idiot. You've hit an innocent woman with your rubbish car, someone shouted. Driver, were you so blind that you didn't see her trying to cross the road? Another voice chimed in. Ignoring them, Daniel knelt beside the woman. Madam, can you hear me? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She was breathing, but barely. I need to get her to the hospital, Daniel muttered to himself. Without wasting another second, he scooped her frail body into his arms and carried her to his car. The murmurs grew louder. Looks like he's a rich man. He wants to cover the matter. Daniel ignored them all. Right now, nothing else mattered except getting the victim to safety. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Daniel kept stealing glances at the unconscious woman lying in the back seat. Who was she? Why was she on the streets? As soon as he arrived at the hospital, he rushed out of the car and called for help. The nurses quickly placed her on a stretcher and wheeled her away while Daniel filled out the necessary paperwork. Are you related to her? A nurse asked, glancing up from the forms. Daniel hesitated. No, I just hit her with my car. The nurse's eyes narrowed. You'll need to stay. The doctor might want to speak with you. Daniel sighed and nodded. He sat down in the waiting area, his mind racing. He hadn't planned for any of this. Just this morning, he had been drowning in his own misery. Now he was here worrying about a woman he didn't even know. Hours passed before the doctor finally emerged. She's stable now, he announced. Luckily, she only sustained minor injuries, a slight concussion, some bruises, but nothing life-threatening. Daniel exhaled in relief. Can I see her? The doctor nodded. She's awake now, but she's still weak. Daniel followed him into the ward. The woman was lying on the hospital bed, her eyes half open. She turned her head slowly as he approached. You brought me here? She asked weakly. Daniel nodded. Yes, I hit you with my car. I'm so sorry. She let out a dry chuckle, though there was no humor in it. You're the first person to care if I lived or died. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? She looked away, her face clouded with pain. Nobody cares about the homeless. Silence filled the air. Daniel studied her properly for the first time. She had high cheekbones, deep brown eyes, and hair that was matted with dirt, but had once been well kept. Beneath the layers of hardship, he could tell she had once been a beautiful woman. What's your name? He asked softly. Clara. Clara. He let the name roll off his tongue. How did you end up like this? Clara sighed. It's a long story. Well, if you don't mind sharing, I have time. Daniel replied. She looked at him for a long moment before finally speaking. I wasn't always like this. I used to be wealthy. I lived in the UK. I had everything, businesses, a home, and friends. Her voice wavered. Then I was betrayed. Daniel's brows furrowed. My best friend framed me for fraud. She planted fake documents and made it look like I was laundering money. The authorities believed her, and I was thrown in jail for 6 years. By the time I got out, everything was gone. My properties, my bank accounts, my reputation. She swallowed hard. I was deported back to Nigeria with nothing. Daniel clenched his jaw. Betrayed by a best friend? He knew that pain all too well. Clara turned to him. Now, I live on the streets, surviving on scraps. Every day is a battle. She chuckled bitterly. So, if your car had killed me today, maybe it would have been a relief. Daniel's chest tightened. He saw himself in her. Different circumstances, but the same kind of pain. The same kind of loss. No, he said firmly. You're not meant to die like this. She scoffed. And what difference does it make? Daniel took a deep breath. I don't know why, but I feel like fate brought us together for a reason. Clara stared at him, surprised by his words. Once you're discharged from here, I'd like you to come with me, Daniel said. Her brows lifted. Where? To my home. She looked at him like he had gone mad. Why would you do that? Daniel hesitated before answering. Because I know what it's like to be broken. For the first time since they met, Clara's eyes softened. And just like that, a new chapter in both their lives began. A few days later, Clara was discharged and agreed to go home with Daniel. It was an easy decision as she had nowhere else to go. As she sat stiffly in the front seat of Daniel's car, her hands clenched in her lap. The soft hum of the engine was the only sound between them as he drove through the quiet streets of Lekki. It felt strange, being in a comfortable car again. After months of sleeping under the bridge and begging for food, the leather seat beneath her felt foreign, like something she didn't deserve to touch. She stole a glance at Daniel. He looked deep in thought, his fingers gripping the steering wheel like he was trying to suppress something inside him. You're sure about this? She finally asked, breaking the silence. Daniel glanced at her. About what? Taking me home with you, she said, looking down at her tattered dress. I don't exactly fit into your world. He exhaled and turned his focus back on the road. I don't care about that. Clara frowned. Why? Daniel hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it. Maybe it was guilt from hitting her with his car. Maybe it was the fact that he saw something familiar in her pain. Or maybe he just didn't want to be alone with his own thoughts. Because I can, he finally said. Clara scoffed. Rich people and their strange hobbies. Daniel smirked. You think I'm doing this for fun? I don't know, she muttered. Maybe. They drove in silence for a few more minutes until they reached an estate with tall gates and uniformed security guards. The guards recognized Daniel immediately and waved them in without question. Clara's breath caught as they pulled into the driveway of a massive duplex. The house was nothing short of breathtaking. White walls, large glass windows, and a neatly trimmed lawn. She swallowed hard. This is where you live? Yes. She suddenly felt small, like an intruder. I don't belong here, she muttered. Daniel turned off the engine and faced her. Listen, if you don't want to stay, I'm not forcing you. But you need a place to rest, even if it's just for tonight. Clara bit her lip. A part of her wanted to say no, to walk away before she got used to comfort again. But she was tired. Tired of struggling. Tired of always fighting to survive. She sighed. All right, just for tonight. Daniel nodded and stepped out of the car. Clara followed hesitantly, suddenly very aware of how dirty she was. Her feet dragged against the clean pavement, leaving faint marks of dust and dried mud. The moment they stepped inside, a middle-aged woman in a maid's uniform approached them. She froze when she saw Clara, her nose wrinkling slightly in disapproval. "Good evening, sir," she greeted Daniel. Her eyes darted to Clara. Should I prepare the guest room?" "Yes, Amaka," Daniel replied. "And bring some food." Amaka hesitated before nodding. "Yes, sir." As she walked away, Clara smirked. "Your maid doesn't like me." Daniel sighed. "She's just surprised, that's all." Clara chuckled dryly. "I get that a lot." Daniel gestured for her to follow him. "Come on, I'll show you your room." They walked down a long hallway, past tastefully decorated paintings and expensive furniture. Clara had seen houses like this before, back when she had her own wealth. But now it all felt like a distant dream. Daniel opened a door and stepped aside. "You can stay here." Clara peeked inside. The room was bigger than some of the hotel rooms she had stayed in back in the UK. A large bed with crisp white sheets stood in the center, and a wardrobe took up most of the wall. She hesitated at the doorway. "I don't want to dirty anything." Daniel sighed. "Clara, just go in." She finally stepped inside, letting out a shaky breath. She turned to Daniel. "Thank you." He gave a small nod. "You can take a shower. I'll have Amaka bring you some clothes." Clara blinked. "A shower?" Daniel looked confused. "Yes, unless you—" "I haven't had a proper bath in months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's expression softened. He realized just how much she had been through. "Then take as long as you need." He left, closing the door behind him. A strange feeling of excitement washed over Clara as she turned to the bathroom door. The moment she stepped inside, she almost cried. A real bathroom, clean tiled floors, a mirror that wasn't cracked, a shower with running water. She turned on the tap and watched as the clear water gushed out. She placed her hands under it, feeling the warmth seep into her skin. Then, slowly, she stepped under the shower. For the first time in months, she let the water wash over her body, taking away the dirt, the pain, the memories. And as the grime slid off her skin, so did a part of her past. When Clara emerged from the bathroom, fresh and wrapped in a towel, she found a neatly folded set of clothes on the bed. A simple t-shirt and sweatpants. Nothing fancy, but the clean fabric felt like luxury against her skin. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she called. Daniel stepped inside, holding a plate of steaming jollof rice and fried chicken. "I figured you'd be hungry." Clara's stomach growled at the sight of the food. She hadn't had a proper meal in weeks. She quickly sat on the bed and grabbed the plate. She hesitated for a moment before digging in. The jollof rice was rich and spicy. She ate like a starving person because in reality she was. Daniel watched her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Slow down. No one is going to take it from you." Clara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "You've never been homeless. You wouldn't understand." Daniel's smile faded. "Maybe not, but I understand what it feels like to lose everything." Clara looked up. "You lost everything?" Daniel exhaled and sat on the couch across from her. "Not money, but something just as valuable." "Somebody broke your heart?" Clara asked. He blinked in surprise. "How do you know?" Clara shrugged. "Back in the hospital when you thought I was asleep, you kept repeating a woman's name, Dora, and hissing. Sounded like heartbreak." Daniel let out a bitter chuckle. "Heartbreak doesn't even begin to describe it." Clara put her plate down. "Tell me." He hesitated, then sighed. "Dora was my fiancée. I loved her. I thought she loved me too. Turns out she only wanted my money. When someone richer came along, she threw me away like trash. The painful part is that she's getting married to her new lover in a few days." Clara frowned. "She's getting married so soon after breaking up with you?" Daniel nodded. "To Josh. He has more money, more connections. He was a better option for her." Clara scoffed. She sounds like a gold digger. Daniel smirked. That's one way to put it. A comfortable silence settled between them. Two broken souls, sitting together, sharing their pain. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel spoke. Come with me to the wedding. Clara nearly fell off the bed with surprise. What? Daniel shrugged. As my plus one. Clara stared at him like he had lost his mind. You want to take a homeless woman to your ex's wedding? Daniel smirked. Why not? Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Daniel like he had just suggested they rob a bank. You want me to do what? She asked again, as if saying it twice would make it make more sense. Daniel leaned back in the chair, arms crossed, watching her reaction with mild amusement. Come with me to Dora's wedding. Clara let out a short laugh, shaking her head. Rich people truly have the most bizarre ideas. Daniel smirked. So that's a no? It's a what in the world are you thinking kind of no, she replied. Why would I go to your ex-fiancée's wedding? And why would you want to go yourself? Daniel's smirk faded, replaced by something more serious. Because I need closure. Clara scoffed. Closure? Is that what you tell yourself? She folded her arms. Be honest with yourself, Daniel. You don't want closure, you want to prove something. He didn't deny it. Instead, he exhaled deeply and looked away. Maybe. But can you blame me? Clara shrugged. No, I can't. I've been there before. They sat in silence for a moment before Clara spoke again, her tone softer. You never answered my question. Why me? Daniel met her eyes. Because I don't want to go alone. And because I think you could use the distraction. Clara stared at him. A week ago, she had been sleeping under a bridge, barely surviving. Now, a millionaire was inviting her to a wedding. Life had a funny way of turning things around. She sighed. Fine, but on one condition. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Which is? You don't go there looking like a heartbroken ex. If we're doing this, you need to go there looking like the happiest man in the world. Like losing Dora was the best thing that ever happened to you. A slow smile spread across Daniel's face. Deal. The next day, Daniel sat in his home office, staring at his phone. The wedding was in 3 days. He had yet to RSVP, and he was beginning to wonder if showing up was really a good idea. Just as he was about to put the phone down, a call came in. The name on the screen made his stomach twist. It was Dora. Daniel hesitated before answering. Hello, Daniel. Dora's voice came through, smooth as ever. How are you? Daniel clenched his jaw. I'm fine. What do you want? Dora chuckled. Straight to the point as always. He didn't respond. She sighed. I just wanted to check in. I know the wedding is coming up, and I wasn't sure if you'd be attending. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Why do you care? Dora let out a small laugh. Come on, Daniel. We were together for years. I still care about you. He clenched his fists. How easily she said those words, as if she hadn't shattered his heart without a second thought. I got the invitation, he said flatly. I'll be there. There was a slight pause before Dora spoke again. That's good. I'd hate for things to be awkward between us. Daniel almost laughed. Awkward? Dora, you're marrying another man barely months after leaving me. I think we passed awkward a long time ago. She sighed. I know you're still upset. Upset? Daniel cut in, his voice cold. No, Dora. I was upset when you left. Now I just don't care anymore. There was an awkward silence. Then Dora spoke, her tone softer. I'll see you at the wedding, Daniel. She ended the call before he could reply. Daniel stared at the phone for a long time before tossing it on the desk. He had made his decision. He was going to that wedding, and he wasn't going alone. The next 2 days were a flurry of preparation. Clara had nothing to wear, so Daniel sent Amaka to take her shopping. The housekeeper had been skeptical at first, but after seeing the transformation Clara had undergone in just a few days, her skin glowing again, her posture more confident, She had softened towards her. Clara returned home with several bags, her eyes still wide from the experience. "I forgot how exhausting shopping is," she groaned, dropping the bags on the couch. Daniel chuckled. "I take it you found something decent to wear?" "More than decent," Clara said with a smirk. "If your goal is to make your ex jealous, trust me, she'll regret ever leaving you." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That good, huh?" Clara grinned. "You'll see." Finally, the wedding day arrived. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks in front of the mirror, taking a deep breath. He looked sharp in his black tuxedo, crisp white shirt, perfectly polished shoes. From the outside, he looked like a man who had everything together. But inside, there was still a part of him that felt uncertain. Would seeing Dora again bring back old feelings? Would he regret coming? A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called. The door opened, and Clara stepped in. Daniel turned to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Clara stood there, looking like an entirely different person. She wore a deep emerald green gown that hugged her figure perfectly, the fabric flowing gracefully to the floor. Her hair, once tangled and unkempt, was now styled into soft waves. She wore minimal makeup, just enough to highlight her striking features. For a moment, Daniel forgot she was the same woman he had picked up off the streets. Clara smirked. "You're staring." Daniel blinked and cleared his throat. "You clean up well," she chuckled. "And you don't look half bad yourself." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" She took it with a smirk. "Let's go crash a wedding." The venue was grand. A 5-star hotel with towering chandeliers, golden decorations, and floral arrangements worth more than most people's salaries. The guests were dressed in their finest, mingling and taking pictures. Daniel and Clara arrived fashionably late. As they stepped in, conversations paused, eyes turning towards them. Whispers started almost immediately. "Who is that with Daniel? Isn't she stunning? Dora will not be happy about this." Daniel smirked. That was exactly the reaction he wanted. Clara leaned in and whispered, "They're talking about us." "Let them," Daniel murmured back. At that moment, a familiar voice rang out. "Daniel." They turned. Standing a few feet away was Dora. She looked breathtaking in her wedding gown, her eyes wide with shock. Her gaze flickered to Clara, and something flashed in her eyes. Discomfort. Daniel smiled coolly. "Hello, Dora. Beautiful wedding." Dora forced a smile, but her eyes remained on Clara. "And who is your date?" Clara stepped forward, meeting Dora's gaze head-on. "Clara, nice to meet you." For a split second, something flickered across Dora's face. Recognition. But she masked it quickly. Daniel, however, noticed, and in that moment, he knew somehow that something was about to happen. Something Dora or anybody else wouldn't expect. The tension between Clara and Dora was subtle but thick enough to be felt. The way Dora's smile barely reached her eyes, the way her fingers twitched slightly at her side. It was clear that something was off. Daniel glanced between the two women, his instincts kicking in. He didn't know what it was, but there was something unspoken between them. Clara, however, remained poised, her face unreadable. "It's a lovely wedding," she said smoothly, her voice carrying an undertone that only Dora seemed to pick up on. Dora's expression stiffened for a fraction of a second before she recovered, her smile widening. "Thank you. We wanted everything to be perfect." She turned to Daniel. "I'm surprised you came." Daniel smirked. "Why wouldn't I?" Dora tilted her head, her voice soft but edged with something sharper. "I just didn't think you'd be able to handle it." Clara felt Daniel's arm tense slightly beneath her hand. She tightened her grip just enough to remind him to stay calm. Daniel chuckled. "Oh, trust me, Dora. I'm doing just fine." Dora's gaze flickered back to Clara. "And you, Clara, was it? You seem familiar. Have we met before?" Clara met her gaze with a small, knowing smile. Oh, we have, but we'll get to that later. Dora's smile faltered. Before she could respond, a voice called out, Dora, darling. A tall man in a navy blue suit strode toward them. Josh, the groom. He wrapped an arm around Dora's waist and gave Daniel a quick nod before turning to Clara. His eyes flickered with admiration. And who might this be? Clara, she answered, offering a polite smile. Josh extended a hand. Nice to meet you, Clara. You must be very special to be Daniel's date tonight. Clara shook his hand but said nothing, her eyes flicking toward Dora, who was watching her closely. Josh turned back to Daniel, grinning. I have to say, mate, it's good to see you. Wasn't sure you'd show. Daniel returned the smile, but there was something cool behind his eyes. Wouldn't miss it for the world. There was a beat of silence before Dora cleared her throat. Well, we have guests to attend to. Enjoy the evening. With that, she and Josh moved away, but not before Dora threw one last glance at Clara, her brows slightly furrowed. Daniel leaned toward Clara. What was that about? Clara smiled faintly. You'll see. The reception was in full swing, laughter, music, clinking glasses. The hall buzzed with excitement, but at the table where Daniel and Clara sat, the air was different. Clara was unusually quiet, watching Dora like a hawk. Daniel finally leaned in. Clara, what's going on? Clara took a deep breath. This wedding isn't what it seems, Daniel. He frowned. What do you mean? She turned to him, her eyes sharp. Dora isn't who you think she is. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Clara, what are you talking about? Clara exhaled, glancing around. Not here, but trust me, when the time comes, you'll understand. Daniel studied her for a long moment before nodding, but he had no idea what was coming next. An hour later, the wedding program had reached the toasts. Guests clinked their glasses as different friends and family members stood to give speeches about love, commitment, and new beginnings. Then it was Dora's turn to speak. She stood gracefully, a charming smile on her lips. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for being here today. Marrying Josh is the happiest moment of my life, and I couldn't have asked for a better man. The crowd clapped. Josh smiled adoringly at her. But then, just as Dora lifted her glass to take a sip, a voice rang out from the other end of the hall. Isn't it funny? Clara said loudly, standing up. How people can lie so effortlessly? The room fell into stunned silence. Dora froze, her eyes wide. Excuse me? Clara took slow, deliberate steps toward the center of the hall. All eyes were on her. You sit here, pretending to be a blushing bride, Clara continued, when in reality, you're nothing but a con woman and a fraudster. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Dora's face went pale. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice tight. Clara let out a cold laugh. Oh, you don't remember me? Dora? Or should I say Alice? She took another step forward. Allow me to refresh your memory. People whispered among themselves, shifting uncomfortably. Clara's voice hardened. 7 years ago, in the UK, your name was Alice and you befriended a woman. You gained her trust, made her believe you were her friend. Then, you framed her for a crime she didn't commit, stole everything she owned, and left her to rot in prison. Dora's breath hitched. Clara's voice dropped to a deadly calm. That woman was me. The entire hall went still. Daniel felt a chill run through his body. He looked at Dora, whose expression had completely crumbled. Josh turned to his bride, his face twisted in confusion. Dora? What is she talking about? Dora opened her mouth, but no words came out. Clara wasn't finished. You see, she continued, her voice carrying through the silent room. Dora here is a master at what she does. She finds wealthy men, makes them fall for her, and then, when the time is right, she takes everything and disappears. More gasps. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Josh's face darkened. Dora, is this true? Dora grabbed his arm. Josh, Daniel felt something inside him snap. He stared at Dora in disbelief, the weight of the truth sinking in. Josh slowly pulled his arm from Dora's grasp. You never loved me, he said quietly. Dora shook her head quickly. Josh, you only wanted my money. Dora, is this true? Someone from the crowd shouted. More voices joined in. You framed that woman? You're a fraud. Dora took a step back, eyes darting around. The walls were closing in. Suddenly, someone from the crowd pulled out their phone and started recording. Then another, and another. Within seconds, Dora's downfall was being captured for the world to see. She turned to Josh desperately. Josh, please. But Josh had already stepped away, his face filled with anger and disgust. Dora's breath came in short gasps as she realized there was no escape. And just like that, her perfect wedding crumbled. The hall was no longer the elegant wedding venue it had been moments ago. The once cheerful guests were now murmuring in disbelief, their faces a mix of shock and intrigue. Dora stood frozen in place, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. Josh had stepped away from her. The glow of love he had earlier was gone, replaced by confusion and betrayal. Daniel folded his arms, watching the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. Clara, standing firm in the center of attention, looked at Dora with nothing but quiet satisfaction. This moment, this revelation, was 6 years in the making. Dora forced a shaky smile onto her face. Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. Her voice wavered, and she looked at Josh with pleading eyes. Josh, you know me? You know the kind of person I am. Josh let out a bitter chuckle, running a hand through his neatly styled hair. Do I? His voice was calm, but his anger was barely contained. Because right now, it seems like I don't know you at all. Dora turned sharply to Clara, her eyes burning with something dangerous. You're lying, she hissed. You're trying to ruin my wedding out of jealousy. Clara raised an eyebrow. Jealousy? She let out a small laugh, shaking her head. Dora, do you even hear yourself? What exactly am I jealous of? You stole everything from me. My money, my business, my life. You framed me, left me to rot in prison. And now you stand here, playing the victim. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, and a few people captured every moment on their phones as Dora's perfect facade cracked. Josh's mother, a well-dressed woman with a sharp gaze, suddenly spoke up. Dora, answer her. Her voice was firm, demanding. Is it true? Dora turned to her, shaking her head desperately. Auntie, please, you can't believe this woman. She's just telling the truth. Daniel's voice cut through the noise. Dora's head snapped towards him. Daniel, not you too. Daniel exhaled, his gaze heavy. I believed you loved me. I was ready to marry you, Dora. But then, out of nowhere, you left me for Josh. And I blamed myself. I thought maybe I wasn't enough. But now, he shook his head, his voice laced with disappointment. Now I see you never loved me. You only wanted what I had. And the moment you found someone richer, you discarded me like trash. Dora flinched as if his words physically hit her. That's not true. Daniel, unfazed, folded his arms. So, you didn't say this? He held up her phone again, pressing play on their recorded conversation. Josh is richer than you, Daniel. What do you expect me to do? Settle for less? Please. A sharp gasp echoed in the crowd. Josh closed his eyes for a moment, his entire body tense. Then slowly he turned to Dora. You were playing me, he said. You made me believe I was special. But I was just another target, wasn't I? Dora reached for his hand. Josh, no, please. I love you. Josh pulled his hand back so fast, it was as if her touch burned him. Don't lie to me, Dora. His voice rose with frustration. You used me. Josh's mother, looking absolutely disgusted, stepped away from Dora. "You mean to tell me," she said, her voice laced with anger, "that the woman my son was about to marry is nothing but a fraudulent criminal?" Dora's lips trembled. "No, it's not like that." Josh pointed at her. "You lied to me. You lied to everyone." The hall had turned into a chaotic mess. People stared at Dora as if she were a wild animal cornered with nowhere to run. Tears pricked at Dora's eyes. She turned to Josh. "Josh, please don't do this." Josh's face was blank. "Do what? Marry you?" He let out a bitter laugh. "That's not happening." With that, he pulled the ring off his finger and threw it at her feet. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The symbolic gesture made it clear this wedding was over. Dora's knees buckled slightly. Her carefully built world was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Josh clenched his fists. "I feel like an idiot." He shot Dora a glare filled with so much resentment that she visibly flinched. "I trusted you. I loved you. And this whole time, you were just playing me?" Dora shook her head violently. "No. Josh, I love you. I swear. I never wanted to hurt you." Clara let out a dry laugh from where she stood. "Love? Dora, you don't know the meaning of that word." She turned to the guests, her voice loud and clear. "She's been playing this game for years, luring rich men into her web and bleeding them dry. She only moved on from Daniel to Josh because he had more money. That's all she does. Calculate who is worth more and discard the rest." A murmur ran through the crowd as some nodded in agreement. Others shook their heads, still struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Clara's voice cut through the tension. "There's just one last thing." Dora barely had time to react before Clara reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. She unfolded it slowly, deliberately, and held it up for the guests to see. "This," she said, "is a copy of the police report filed against Dora in the UK. It outlines the fraudulent activities she engaged in before she disappeared." Another wave of gasps spread through the hall. Clara turned to Josh. "I think you deserve to see who you were about to marry." Josh hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. He snatched the paper from Clara's hand and scanned through it. His eyes darkened with each passing second. After what felt like an eternity, he lifted his head and met Dora's panicked gaze. "You disgust me." Dora opened her mouth, but no words came out. Clara sighed and turned to Daniel. "I can't believe I could finally put this to bed and expose the truth. Now I know the reason why the universe made our paths cross when you hit me with your car." Daniel studied her face for a moment before nodding. "You're right. It was no coincidence at all. Dora hurt so many people. If I hadn't hit you with my car, I never would have invited you to this wedding and the truth would have remained hidden forever. Who knows how many more she would have scammed." Clara shook her head. "It wasn't just about stopping her. I needed to heal. I've carried this anger, this pain for so long. Today, I finally feel free." Daniel smiled softly. "You deserve that." Josh suddenly stood up and walked toward Daniel and Clara. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in just one evening. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice thick with regret. "For everything. I didn't know who I was marrying. If I had, I would have never doubted you." Clara gave him a small nod. "You weren't the only one she deceived." Josh exhaled deeply and nodded. "More than I can put into words." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a checkbook. "I don't know if this will help, but I want to do something for you." Clara raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" Josh quickly scribbled down a number, tore the check from the book, and handed it to her. "This is 5 million naira, he said. "I know it's nothing compared to what you lost, but it's a start. You deserve a chance to rebuild your life." Clara stared at the check, shocked. She had spent the last year begging on the streets, struggling to survive each day. Now, in her hands was a chance to start over. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to accept kindness, Clara." She swallowed hard and nodded. "Thank you, Josh. She paused, emotions threatening to choke her. "I really don't know what to say." Josh gave her a small smile. "Just promise me you'll use it to start fresh." Clara nodded, holding the check close to her chest. She would. She had no intention of wasting this opportunity. The video of Clara exposing Dora at her wedding went viral on social media, prompting many of her past victims to come forward and make a case against her. Some had lost millions to her scams. Others had been manipulated emotionally and financially, just like Daniel and Josh. Social media had become flooded with #JusticeForClara posts, with people demanding that Dora face the full weight of the law. Even the news stations had picked up the story, exposing her crimes in full detail. Clara gave her statement at the police station, and soon after, the authorities had gathered enough evidence to charge Dora in court. Now, as she stood outside the courthouse, waiting for the hearing to begin, she felt a strange sense of peace. Daniel stood beside her, hands tucked into his pockets. "Nervous?" Clara exhaled softly. "Not really. I just want to see this through." Daniel nodded. "You will." A few moments later, Dora arrived, escorted by police officers. She was no longer in her elegant wedding dress, but in a simple, plain outfit. She looked nothing like the glamorous, confident woman she had once been. Her eyes met Clara's for a brief second. There was no more arrogance in them, no more manipulation, just pure defeat. Clara held her gaze, feeling no anger, no bitterness, just closure. As Dora was led inside, Clara turned to Daniel. "After this, I think I want to leave Lagos for a while. Start fresh somewhere new." Daniel gave her a small smile. "That sounds like a good idea. You deserve a fresh start." She smiled back at him. "Thank you, Daniel. If you hadn't taken me to that wedding, none of this would have happened." He chuckled. "Yeah, I guess fate has a funny way of working things out." Clara looked up at the courthouse, then back at Daniel. "No matter what happens today, I'm free now, and that's all I ever wanted." Daniel nodded, and together, they walked into the courthouse, where justice was finally about to be served.